In the epic story of the Mahabharata, filled with incredible figures, there's one warrior whose life is just packed with glory, tragedy, and a fate that seems absolutely inescapable. Today, we are diving deep into the story of that warrior, Karna.
Okay, I want you to picture this. It's the 17th day of the Kurukshetra War. The battlefield is just a grim landscape of fallen warriors. And right there, in the middle of all that chaos, stands one man, Karna, the son of the sun god, Surya. You can almost see the fire of his divine father in his eyes, but his heart? Well, his heart is just heavy with this deep, untold sorrow.
So, we all kind of know the famous part of the story, right? Karna's chariot wheel gets stuck in the mud, and boom, he becomes this easy target for his arch-rival Arjuna. But was it really that simple? Or was his death something much bigger? The final, unavoidable chapter in a story that was written long before the war even kicked off. Let's dig in and unravel this thing.
All right, to really get a handle on Karna's death, we have to rewind, like all the way back to the very beginning. His origin story isn't just some backstory, you know? It's literally the first and maybe the most crucial clue to understanding his destiny.
You see, the tragedy of Karna's life starts the second he's born. He was born a prince, a divine being even, practically invincible, with this golden armor literally fused to his skin. But here's the catch. His mother, Kunti, was an unwed princess, and she was terrified of the societal shame. So what does she do? She puts her baby in a basket and sets him adrift in a river. He's eventually found and raised with so much love by a charioteer's family. But society? Well, society is cruel. They never let him forget his supposed low-caste upbringing, always calling him Sutaputra, the charioteer's son. It was an insult that haunted him his entire life.
So you can imagine, right? This constant rejection just lit a fire inside Karna. He was determined to prove that a warrior is made by their skill, not by their birth. And then, at his absolute lowest moment, during a huge public humiliation, one person steps up. Duryodhana, the Kaurava prince. He offers Karna a kingdom, friendship, and the one thing he craved most, respect. That single act of kindness forged a bond of loyalty so strong, so unbreakable, that it would, tragically, place Karna on the wrong side of history.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got a man who doesn't know he's fighting his own brothers, and he's loyal to a fault. But believe it or not, that's only part of the puzzle. Karna's fate was also sealed by this fatal chain of curses. Think of them like links, each one pulling him closer and closer to that tragic end on the battlefield.
Four critical things that all conspired against him. 4 events that basically guaranteed that on that fateful day, all of his skill, all of his bravery, it just wasn't going to be enough. And it all started with a simple, innocent mistake.
So, when he was a young man practicing his archery, Karna accidentally killed a Brahman's cow. It was a complete accident, but the consequences? Oh, they were severe.
The grieving Brahman laid this incredibly powerful curse on him. At your most helpless moment, he said, your chariot wheel will get stuck in the earth. Can you imagine that? One single accidental moment, just echoing through his entire life. That one mistake led to a devastating curse, one that would literally paralyze him in his most important battle. And believe it or not, this was only the first link in the chain.
Next up, the second curse. Now, Karna was desperate to become the greatest archer in the world, so he seeks out the legendary Parashurama. The problem? Parashurama only taught Brahmins. So Karna lies. He pretends to be a Brahmin. And it works for a while. But then one day, Parashurama is sleeping with his head in Karna's lap, and a scorpion stings Karna. Badly. But Karna, not wanting to disturb his guru, just sits there and endures the searing pain without even flinching. The blood eventually wakes Parashurama up, and he knows instantly. No Brahmin could take that kind of pain. He'd been lied to.
And his curse was absolutely devastating. When you need it most, you will forget all the knowledge you have learned from me. Wow. Just imagine that. The ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra, the key to his power, would be completely useless at the exact moment his life depended on it. So now, his 2 biggest strengths, his chariot and his divine knowledge, were both doomed to fail him.
And if that wasn't enough, the third blow to his fate came from, well, ironically, it came from his greatest virtue, his generosity. Karna was famous for it. He never, ever refused a request. But even this was twisted against him. An act of charity goes wrong, it's misinterpreted, and bam, another curse. This time, the curse was simple and brutal. You will die in a helpless state.
Another layer of doom. For a warrior like Karna, being helpless was the ultimate dishonor. You see the pattern? Each curse is chipping away at his identity as a warrior. But the final blow, the most painful one, it wasn't a curse from a stranger.
No, this wasn't from a god or a sage. This was a wound inflicted by the one person who could have changed everything for him, his own mother, Kunti.
You see, Kunti knew. She knew the whole time that Karna was her son. She watched him being insulted, she watched him join the side of her other son's mortal enemies, and she said nothing. She stayed silent, probably because she was afraid that the truth would mess up the Pandavas' claim to the throne. Her silence cost Karna everything: his identity, his birthright, and it tragically put him on a collision course with his own brothers in a war to the death.
Okay, so let's go back to that battlefield. Day 17. Now that we have all the pieces, his birth, his loyalty, that awful chain of curses, we can see how his death wasn't just some random event. It was a catastrophic pileup of his entire life.
The final battle happens so fast, it's terrifying. Karna fires his one-time used divine weapon, the Vasavi Shakti, right at Arjuna. But Krishna, being Krishna, masterfully saves him. And then it starts. The first curse kicks in. Karna's chariot wheel sinks deep into the mud. He's stuck, helpless. He tries to summon his ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra, but then the second curse hits, Parashurama's curse. His mind goes completely blank. He can't remember the mantra. It's all falling apart in a matter of seconds.
And in that moment of pure desperation, Karna pleads. He appeals to Dharma, the code of righteousness. He yells out, "Arjuna, stop! This is against the rules of war. Let me free my chariot." And you know what? By any warrior's code, it's a totally reasonable request.
But Krishna's response is just swift and cutting. He basically says, "Dharma? Where was your Dharma when Draupadi was being disrobed in front of everyone? Where was Dharma when 6 of you ganged up on and killed Arjuna's young son, Abhimanyu?" In that one moment, Krishna just holds up a giant mirror to all of Karna's past choices and his silence.
Following Krishna's command, Arjuna lets the final arrow fly. And as Karna falls, his eyes are locked on the setting sun, a final look at his divine father. In his very last breath, he doesn't talk about glory or revenge. He just whispers the name of the mother whose love and acceptance he'd craved his entire life. And it's said that miles away, as if connected by some invisible thread, Kunti feels her firstborn son die, and she just collapses.
So, when the dust settles, what are we left with? How are we supposed to remember Karna? Is he a villain who fought for the bad guys, or is he something way more complicated?
I mean, his whole legacy is just a bundle of contradictions. On one hand, you have this incredibly loyal friend, a man so generous they called him Danveer, the greatest of givers. But on the other hand, that same loyalty tied him to the villainous Duryodhana, and it made him a party to some truly terrible things. He was a hero in his heart, but maybe a villain by the company he kept.
When you look at the whole picture, his death was absolutely not an accident. It was the final, tragic bill coming due for a life that was shaped by so many forces outside of his control. It was the price he paid for his mother's silence, a story written in the ink of those terrible curses, and a fate sealed by his own flawed, but also deeply human, sense of loyalty.
And that leaves us with the big one, the question people have been debating for centuries. If you strip away all the circumstances, the curses, the secrets, what's left? What do you see? Was Karna a villain who simply got what was coming to him? Or was he the Mahabharata's greatest, most tragic hero? I'll leave that one for you to decide.